universe does want to align you with your path, and the universe is giving you gifts. It is giving you opportunities to live your fullest truth. It's a life's work. I don't just want to keep accumulating. I want to build something. I feel like I am a full person.
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Jessica here. I wanted to share one tip before we jump into the episode today. A lot of people have been writing in about feeling a bit funky, a little bit out of sorts, and just not able to find their center. Lucky for you guys, we have an upcoming end of year challenge where we're going to help you tackle that in a big, big way. But before that launches, I would recommend utilizing the validation DI and the safe DI. If you can use the validation DI to sit with your weird mood, your uncomfortable feeling, and just kind of parse through okay, let's just accept that this is a weird mood. We don't know why, we're not sure what's going on, and we don't even need to solve it right now. But can we sit with that weird energy that might be coming up and validate it? And that often helps to transform it on the other side. And then you can use the safety eye on a different day or later in the week to really fortify that safe connection with yourself, that safe place, that safe person. I know with so much going on in the world, grounding into our inner safety can be a really helpful tool at this time. So on today's episode, we are tapping into the magic of the manifestation work. We have on process guest Maura, who's going to walk us through how her religious background and upbringing led her to sort of pedestalizing the universe and her connection with it instead of seeing it as something that she could co-create with. How she dances with the synchronicities of life and all the little tendrils of things that are pointing in the right direction for her soul's path. How she manifested her absolute dream partnership. How she moved through some incredible traumas from childhood, especially around an alcoholic caregiver. Now, if you are someone who has experienced that, we are going to touch on it a little bit in the episode, so just trigger warning there. But I think it's a really powerful episode of learning how to take your power back, how to get into the driver's seat, to not be, oh, all of this is happening to me, to what role do I have in this? And out of my life circumstances from the day-to-day moment, what can I actually control that I'm giving my power away to? And Maura teaches us how to take it back. I think you guys are going to absolutely love this one and fall in love with Maura. I hope you enjoy.
And now a word from our partners.
Speaking of manifestations, one major manifestation that has come through for me recently is Bon Charge's infrared PEMF mat. Their PEMF mat, which stands for Pulse Electromagnetic Field, is a magnetic energy mat that sends energy waves to work with your body's natural magnetic field and improve your overall well-being. Now, I originally heard of PEMF mats back in the day. I used the first one at Lacey's Forest Retreat House, and I kind of didn't really think it was going to do anything at first. And when I laid on this mat, I'm telling you, my whole body just relaxed. My nervous system relaxed, and I fully was able to calm down. Fast forward a few years later, one of our absolute favorite companies, Bon Charge, has launched their own PEMF mat, and it is fully loaded with all the best biohacking techniques you can imagine. So not only do they have multiple frequency settings, one for delta waves to improve deep sleep, one for grounding and earthing that is in the frequency of Schumann's resonance, which is the Earth's magnetic field frequency, one for alpha waves to increase calm creativity, one for beta waves for logical thinking, conscious thought, or meditation, and one that cycles through all four to really align all different parts of your body. But that's not all. They also have red, near infrared, and far infrared light wave frequencies. You've heard me talk about this before, but red light therapy can be so impactful for muscle soreness, tension, pain in the body, detoxification, and so many more things. It is also packed with tourmaline gemstones, germanium gemstones, and amethyst crystals, which all help to balance your mood, keep you calm, activate spiritual awareness, open intuition, and attract positive ions from your body to keep you in that balanced state. And really exciting news from Bond Charge that all of their products, if you have an HSA or an FSA account, they're all eligible, giving you tax-free savings up to 40% on any product you buy from Bond Charge. This is huge. And it's also really cool that they're getting recognized for how much these biohacking products are impacting your health in such a meaningful way. So if you are interested in trying Bond Charge's new infrared PEMF mat, you can use the code MAGNETIC, that's all caps, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Again, that's magnetic, MAGNETIC for 15% off. Or you can go to bondcharge.com/pages/magnetic and check out some of the other incredible biohacking low EMF products that Bond Charge has to offer.
All right, on to the episode.
Welcome, Maura.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
I kind of want to kick off with how we met.
Love.
So from my end, Daniel and I had just signed the lease at our new place. We were so excited and just feeling like, wow, this is such a new chapter. And we're like, let's check out the neighborhood, what's kind of close by and like where we'd get coffee and, you know, what are all the spots nearby. And so we drove into town and grabbed coffee and then walked into this shop. And immediately I was so drawn to the shop because it smelled A, amazing. But B, I was just like, oh, there's like really good energy over here. Okay, like I want to go in, come inside and meet you. And we already had a call scheduled. You had submitted your process application. We had a call scheduled for that coming Wednesday. And you were like, oh my gosh, you're here. Like, what is going on? This is so bizarre. And the timing. And I had wanted to go to that shop forever, even when I lived in another part of town, but I never got in there. So the fact that I came in on the day that you were working, it just felt very kismet.
Totally. No, the second you walked in, I like stopped what I was doing and I stared. And I think, yeah, your fiance was like, I saw you looking. And I was like, I don't know you. And I was like, no, I know you don't know me, but I know Jessica kind of. You walked in and I like stood because I wanted to make sure. And I was like, no, that's totally her. And I was like, okay, well, I have to go say hi because we're going to be speaking on Wednesday. But it's so funny for me that you guys came in and that I got to, you know, introduce myself to you in person because I had actually been on the TBM walk. And I remember like for most of the walk, I was kind of walking. I kept thinking, I was like, I want to say something, like I want to say hi. But I was in a very different point in my year and in this journey. And I was so nervous. And I was like, I don't want to take up too much of her time. And everyone thinks because you're the kind of like a public figure, like they can just come up and talk to you. And I want to be respectful. If there's a moment, like I'll take it. And I was overwhelmed and I was so scared. I can't do it. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to say something to like the other women from TBM that are there. I'll introduce myself to them. And we ended up speaking a little bit. And I was proud of that. I did it. I said hi. I like spoke up. I didn't get to talk to Jessica, but that's okay. Like it all worked out. I had such a good time. It didn't matter. I'll talk to her one day. And then you walked into the shop and I was like, and this is that day. And this is the day that we speak. So it's funny how it worked out. It felt like I was ready to talk to you. The universe said we were ready to talk to each other. So I'm super excited to get to talk to you and to be on the podcast today.
Yes. Isn't that so funny to thinking about the stories we have in our heads of like when it's the right time to like go for something or put yourself out there or introduce yourself. The same thing happens for me. I'll go to events and it's like someone that I know from online. It's almost like because you know them from online, you're like, oh, I don't want them to know that I know them from online, but like obviously I know them from online.
Totally.
So it's this weird sort of meta thing. For anyone out there, you can always come up to me. I am so excited to talk to you. Never feel nervous. I will greet you with open arms and probably give you a hug. So just.
And we hugged. And you're like, can I hug you? And I said, oh my God, please.
Yeah. Okay, I guess astrology first.
Of course.
What is your big three?
So I think it's actually really cool to talk about almost like my big four, because I have my big three, which is I'm an Aries sun, Virgo moon, Libra rising. Your rising sign determines your chart ruler, and so mine would be my Venus, and I'm a Pisces Venus. And I love to bring that up because I have sister signs. Like my entire chart is sister signs. Aries, Libra, Virgo, Pisces. And then the rest of my chart, like my Mars, my Mercury is also interesting. So yeah, my chart has a lot of duality, which is a really big theme and important part of my life, and also emphasized by my Libra rising. So yeah, I'm a Aries, Virgo, Libra with some Pisces in there. And my human design is I'm a generator and I'm a 5-1, which is kind of intense, but I love it sometimes.
What does a 5-1 mean? I forget what that one is.
The way it works is like the first number is how the outside world perceives you, like what the people in your life are seeing, how you're interacting with your external circumstances. And 5, it's the heretic, which, when we talk about my background will just make so much sense because I was raised Catholic and now I'm a witch, which is, I think the trajectory for a lot of people who were raised Catholic and or became spiritual, but it's the heretic. And then the 1 is a lot of fun for me because it's your internal line and it's how you interact with yourself. And my internal line 1, it's the investigator. And that to me is also, it's why I love TBM so much, because since it's this internal world, I'm constantly investigating like my internal world, my internal systems, my subconscious. There is just this intensity in my charts. So we have fun.
I think that's so cool too, though, how you connected those two pieces of your human design to the narratives and the stories and the things that have been coming up for you in your life over time. And it's so funny you say that people like project onto you, because the second we hopped on this call, I was like, her energy really reminds me of my friend Kristen so much, because brains like to categorize. When we meet new people, we want to understand how can I fit them into the landscape of like what I know about humans and who this person is, right? So immediately my brain is like, she reminds me of Kristen. And it's so funny that is literally part of your kind of like archetypal nature, that people immediately have that sense of, wow, I feel familiar. I feel like I know her. I feel like all of these things.
Totally.
It's so easy, especially when you can read other people's needs without them verbally saying it. With their body language and with their energy, you can tell what they want. And so it's so easy to feed into that and be like, oh, fine, I'll just like say the thing you want me to say, even though I don't even agree with it, or even though whatever. And that is where, this is what our challenge is going to really be about coming up this winter. But that is where it's like, no, that's the test. That's the opportunity to say, ooh, this is hard. And I know that you want me to show up like this, but my true self is not that. And I have to do something different.
And it's hard, especially because like it's such an intuitive feeling, and I think so many people that do TBM, and also just so many people in general, like when you start people pleasing, when you're sensing something from somebody, that's your intuition. You are picking up on their energy. I look at my own human design and it's basically all open. All of my gates, all of my portals. I'm lucky that I ended up being a generator and not the reflector. Like I think I have like one thing pushing me over that edge. So like that would be so much. No shade to reflectors. I'm just like, y'all are carrying a lot of the worldly burden, but yeah, just I'm so open and just constantly aware of like watching people's eyes turn a certain way. And I'm also trained like as an energy healer and as a tarot reader. So it's like I'm an active intuitive, constantly leaning into my intuitive gifts. It feels like this intense people pleasing energy of like, I am picking up on your subconscious. I want to fix this for you. And it's like, that's also not my responsibility. And that is an imposition of my own space and my own energy. Like, and it's important, I think, to be able to intuitively pick up on where people are at as a sense of like safety, as a sense of checking your own boundaries, checking your own energy. But like, there is like a line there because you want to make sure that you're taking care of you in all of that intuitive, spiritual goo and not just constantly taking on other people's energy because it's draining. But it's really, I think, important for women, femmes, queer people, like everyone, intuitive people, spiritual people, to be able to like feel those energetic boundaries and be able to look back.
Oh my gosh. We're going to be launching a little section in the Deep Imaginings about energetics. And we're going to launch like a clear your aura DI. So you can go in.
I can't wait.
And just energetically like wipe it out, suck all the energies out, unhook whoever is like projecting or into you or like just that gaze. It's like, nope, let's just be in our own energy. So this is like you're going to love it.
I can't wait. Wow. I need that. Like you always know, truly TBM always knows what the people need. Even with the podcast, I'll be having a week like this week. I was like, I'm feeling so tested. I'm feeling so crazy. Like, what do I do? And then, like the test podcast episode dropped and I was like, oh, so this is what I do. Thank you, Jessica. Like, thank you, Lacey. Thank you, TBM team. So I love it. I'm so excited.
There is like true magic with the TBM community and the team and all of that because our spidey senses will go off and we're like, hey, like I'm really feeling like we're going to need this for the community. And then I'll just notice from my DMs or messaging with people or talking to friends, I'm like, this is the pulse. This is what we need to like change or move around or whatever. And if we ever don't listen to it, it comes back as like a super loud ping. You need to change the content schedule. Like you need to flip things. And I'm like, okay, call like the podcast team. I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry, but we have to swap them. We need the test this week. It's so important. They're like, okay, we've got it. So it's really the universe co-conspirating to give the community what they need too.
I really feel like y'all are tapped into the collective unconscious. TBM really makes me believe in the collective unconscious, which just also, it makes me believe, in magic. It's such a great resource. I could sing my praises all day. Like, I love it.
Okay, what is your cultural background and upbringing? You talked about growing up Catholic. How did your upbringing inform everything that essentially made you who you are today? What are those big pillars that you're like, oof, if I didn't experience this, then I wouldn't have this? How can we start to pull some of that together too?
So I had a lovely childhood in the sense that I loved it and I'm very grateful for it and I wouldn't change anything about it. I grew up extremely close to my family. When I talk about my family, people will always think of like your nuclear family, like your parents, your siblings. I'm talking about like what most people would refer to as their extended family, like aunts, uncles, cousins. It's a very big, close-knit family unit. And I'm very lucky to have that and to have been surrounded by so much love. But my childhood was also very intense. And there were a lot of factors that were really difficult for me. So, I grew up with a single mom. My dad left before I was born. To this day, I have not met him. I don't know what he looks like. But so that already, like growing up single mother, but I grew up with my mom in my grandparents' house with my grandparents and my two aunts and our dog. So it was a big household.
Full house.
Yeah, it was a full house. There was a lot going on. My mom and I shared a bed for most of my childhood, probably up until like first or second grade, just because there weren't that many rooms. And then my grandpa built me a bunk bed, but the spiders in the corner made me so scared. I couldn't do it. I had yet to embrace being a spooky girl. The spiders freaked me out too bad. So very close family, growing up with my aunts, my grandparents, my mom. I was the only kid in the house and I was the first grandchild. There were other children in the family, but in that house and in like my grandparents' world, I was the first kid and it was intense. I was parentified at a young age. I felt like I had to grow up quick to kind of keep up with the adults. And honestly, like it was easy for me in a way. Like I was a precocious child. I loved to read and I looked at the adults as my friends and like as my family, like there's no difference between us, but there was because it became very lonely. I was this only child, the only kid, this house of adults who all had their own lives. they gave me everything that they could and like everything that they had. There will always be holes, like they can't be able to fill. And it was hard for me being this only kid, being alone. I was lonely. And then also on top of that, not having a father figure and recognizing that it made me different. And again, everyone in my family like tried to essentially act like this wasn't a thing. And I would have questions and they wouldn't really get answered. And I know it's because my family's trying to protect me, but also because they don't really know. My dad hadn't been around a lot before I was born in general. So it's like even my extended family outside of my mom, like didn't really know him. And it was difficult for my mom to talk about, which I respect, but also became difficult for me, especially when my family is very, very Irish Catholic. Like we still, have cousins back in Ireland. We're constantly talking about the story of when we came over. My grandma's Irish soda bread recipe gets passed around. I took Irish step dancing lessons. Like we're very culturally Catholic. Growing up, I would tell people I was Irish, like only Irish, and they did not believe me. So I'd be like, oh, I'm Irish. And they're like, well, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, you don't look Irish. You can't be Irish. You must be adopted. Your family's not your family. Because I don't look Irish. I mean, I dyed my hair red, which clearly is not my natural color. But imagine I have brown hair. Like I look Italian. And, my father's side of the family, like his parents were from Portugal and Italy and they moved to Brazil. So he was Brazilian, immigrated from Brazil, but it has this Mediterranean background. And I look like that, and the amount of cultures that I have gotten that were not Irish, even up until this day. At this point, like I laugh. It's so much effort to explain. I know I don't look Irish, but also I don't feel like I can claim being Italian or Portuguese or Brazilian. I'm not raised with it. I can't claim that, but I know when people look at me, they want to know. I felt like I didn't belong in my family, which was devastating. It was isolating and it exacerbated that loneliness that I was feeling and also just feeling unwanted. My family wanted me so bad. My mom wanted me so bad. She chose to have me, but like there was always that missing piece, which I then felt guilt over. I'm ungrateful, that I can't get over that I don't know who my father is. And like now all of these kids are questioning and that would be difficult for my mom too. So that was an intense factor. But then, so my father figure became my grandpa. So I was a grandpa's girl. And over time, my mom, when I was in kindergarten, she went to culinary school. And then she got a really good job out of culinary school. It was long hours and it was long days and it was a long commute. And so I didn't see her a lot for a while there. Most of second grade, it was just me and Pop in the house. And that is when things started to get really difficult because he had a drinking problem. My grandpa was an alcoholic. He would pick me up from school and he would take me from school and we would go to the bar. And I wanted to go home and like I wanted to play with my dog and like watch Beauty and the Beast for the 100th time or like The Great Mouse Detective over and over again. I wanted to go home and watch movies and I was at the bar for hours with my grandpa. And my family didn't know because by the time that they came home, we were already home and he wasn't going to say anything. But so I spoke up and I was like, I don't like going to the bar with Pop after school. And she was pissed. She was livid. She was like, you cannot be taking her to the bar. That is not your responsibility. You have like a duty to her. Like you need to be taking her home. Get it together, essentially. And so my grandpa was like, okay, heard. I'm going to take her home. And then he started going to the store by himself. And he was like, okay, so like, I'm going to go to the grocery store. Like, I'll be back soon. So now I'm home alone. This is like my first time being home alone. I'm like 7 or 8. And I do my homework and time will go by and he's still not home from the grocery store. I have a very vivid memory of his car finally pulled up. I hear the door, like I'm in the living room. I'm so excited. And he walked in with like one grocery bag with 3 things in it. And that's when it hit me. I was like, grocery store is synonymous for bar. When he says he's going to the store, he means he's going to the bar. It was devastating because I felt like it was my fault and like there was something wrong with me because I didn't understand substance abuse and addiction as a kid. And honestly, like through therapy and TBM, I've really been able to zoom out and look at my experience and look at my family's experience. My family has a lot of trauma that they don't know how to cope with.
At TBM, we talk a lot about the mind-body connection. And one thing I can't get out of my head is something that Dr. Tara said a while back, and how one way to start to rebuild that connection or enhance or deepen that connection between the mind and body is while you're in the shower, intentionally giving all of your body parts love. Now, this made me think about how my shower could be this task that I have to get done to this incredible ritual of self-love. And one of the products I utilize to help me do this is Osea's Body Collection. And Osea just launched their most anticipated product to date, their Undaria Algae Body Wash. When I tell you the smell of this is just so heavenly, it's citrusy, it almost has like a grapefruit, lemon, orange scent to it. And as with all of Osea's other products, it's completely natural, plant-based ingredients that help support your skin. So it doesn't disrupt your skin microbiome or disrupt your pH. It actually makes your skin feel really nourished after. The worst thing ever after showering is when you use a body wash or a body bar and your skin feels kind of dry and cakey. This does not have that effect at all. It leaves it feeling supple and soft and really moisturized. All of their skincare is clean, vegan, cruelty-free, and climate neutral certified. So it is not only supporting your body, but also the planet. So if you want to treat your body to feeling like a day at the spa, I highly recommend their new Undaria Algae Body Wash. And you can top it off with a little Undaria Algae Body Oil or their body butter afterwards to just really lock in all of the moisture. They even have travel sizes, so if you are on the go, it is the perfect little 1.5 ounce to stack in your bag and have that experience on the go. Up-level your shower with Osea's clean vegan body care. Get 10% off your first purchase with code MAGNETIC10, all caps MAGNETIC 10 for 10% off your first purchase. MAGNETIC10, MAGNETIC. How have you started to chip away at that? With those core narrative, with those wounds that are like so deep, it was just the story that our inner child took from the external experiences we had. That was what you took away. That was so untrue, but it makes so much sense why the little version of you would take that story away from that situation. So how have you started to chip away at it? And what were some of the things that were maybe happening in your life that once you started to chip away at it, those things started to like resolve and get to the next level? Because I really believe that those, especially those core narratives, those limiting beliefs, you know, like Lacey says, the layers of an onion, but it's almost like levels. If that is that really strong neural pathway that's down there, that's rooted, so many stories come back to that. And so when you unblock, it's like, can you chip away at it here, here, and here? And it's like, great, okay, did that unblocking. And then you open up this new level of self. And now you can manifest a whole new level of things at this area. And then it's like, okay, when you go to the next level, it's like, oof, okay, how do we chip away at it here? You know, it's like a painting or sculpture that you're like chipping away to get all this stuff off. As you've been unpacking that and working with the TBM tools to kind of move through that and validate your experience, what have you seen shift?
I think the number one thing that has helped shift, not just feeling unwanted or this core belief of being unwanted, but so many things in my life, is holding space that two things can be true. And two things being able to be true has been a mantra that has held my hand and walked me home and brought me down my path time and time again, because with my upbringing, with my Virgo moon, I'm such a black and white thinker. And it's been something that I have really had to move away from. And part of that has been learning intense compassion for myself and for other people. Like, I was already empathetic, and it's one thing to be empathetic, but it's another to be compassionate, because you have to hold space for so many unaligned puzzle pieces. But two things can be true. And so I remember I started reading All About Love by Bell Hooks, and Bell Hooks posits that to hurt someone actively and say you love them, like, you don't actually love them, because love has no space for pain or like to hurt another person. If someone claims they love you, but they're doing XYZ to hurt you, like, that's not true love, and you haven't experienced true love. And I think that most of that is correct. Like true love is this unadulterated compassion. It's selfless. But I'm also like, two things can be true. And like, I cannot hold in my reality that like my grandpa didn't love me, because he did, but he loved me in the way that he was taught to love. Again, like two things can be true. Like you can love this person, but that person is not your life and you have your own experiences. He loved me, but he also had an addiction and had substance abuse. It's a disease. No matter how much you love someone, like you are always going to have like your trials and tribulations, your own life to work through. And so you can't always hold space for both. And so like learning that two things can be true, that he loved me, but he was sick, that has allowed me to move the needle on these blocks, because I had to become objective. Like I cannot keep internalizing this narrative when just like looking at the facts essentially and like zooming out a little bit. Logically, I can see that this was not the case. And so with that logic, I can begin to be compassionate for my shadow and my shame and my trauma and my triggers and all of these things. And I can do the shadow DI and I can do the inner child DI and I can crack these layers. And then like when I'm tested or triggered by something in that vein, I get to zoom out and I get to take stock and say like, this is how I feel, but like these feelings, they're not my reality. It's okay to take a deep breath. I do have an example of that from the beginning of this year. And so at the beginning of the year, I had this huge rock bottom and I was really, really, really triggered. And I knew that I had to walk away from something. For my inner peace, for my sense of self-worth, I knew that I had to walk away. And so I took that leap and I took that step and I put some trust in the universe. But I also knew that in passing that test, taking the action I knew I needed to take, that I did not deeply, internally, subconsciously believe that I deserved to walk away from this situation, and that what I was doing was in my highest sense of self-worth. And I knew that that meant that I was going to continue to be tested in that vein until I could really buckle down and say like, you know what, this is not my fault. You know what, I'm not a bad person. You know what, like I don't deserve this. Until I could really say that, I will continue to be tested. And I was. It happened 2 or 3 more times, almost like verbatim. What had happened is like, someone had said something to me and I was like, I don't deserve this. And 2 other people in my life came forward and said almost the exact same thing to me about myself. Okay, cool. This is definitely, no, I don't deserve this. And I'm going to continue to walk away. And I think that was huge for me, is that when it was happening, it was like, I might not feel this right now. I really might not. But I know logically that this is not true and this cannot be the case. And I'm going to keep seeing this test come up. And over time, I'm going to get stronger and this belief is going to get stronger and I'm going to move forward. And I did. And I had like a lot of really crazy and great manifestations come through, like living in LA. I'm an actor and I'm a filmmaker, and this has been a huge part of my journey of being in LA, is that like, I won't be seen. I take small steps and then I hide and like I jump off a cliff. And then I'm like, look, and I'm doing it. And the universe is like, yes, you are. And then I immediately backtrack on the lesson. And the universe is like, come on.
Just
like,
stick the landing. You got
stick
this.
the landing. Yeah. And then they kick me off again. Like I get rock bottom again. They're like, you didn't learn. And I'm like, oh, I know. That has come up a lot with my career and with my art. And so after all that had happened, I really needed money. Like I had quit my job. And I had seen that there was a call for catering staff for this event. Like this award show is going to be happening. And I had grown up catering. Like my mom was a caterer and I would work for her. So I was like, I do this all the time back home. I could do this. I submitted my resume, like I got the interview, but I'd also had a few other interviews lined up for like other places. I remember that weekend, my partner's mom was going to be in town. And I was like, you know what? Like I would rather just spend time with my partner and his mom. I don't need to like go to this one-off catering event interview. And it was like 30 minutes before I should have been there. And I was like, Maura, like, you just need to go. Just do it. I knew in that moment, I was like, okay, this is a ping and I need to follow this. And I went and I had no idea what the event was. And it was for the SAG Awards. And they're like, okay, like,
wow.
you're hired, like, you're going to work the SAG Awards. Oh my God, what? And I showed up and it was a huge expander. And I ended up serving the table for the bear. So I'm serving the bear. I'm watching all of these actors give these speeches. I knew. I was like, the universe put me here because the whole thing was like living in LA and like jumping off cliffs and pursuing art. And I keep backtracking. I keep refusing to be seen. I keep telling myself it's not possible and I'm going to go do something else. And I had this whole other life plan. I was so ready to give up. I'm at the SAG Awards randomly, it feels, and I'm serving the table for the show that my roommate and I were obsessed with. All of America was obsessed with. And I'm watching these actors speak about craft and about how far they've come. And I'm making all of these friends. And I'm just like, yeah, no, this is what I want. 10 years from now, 5 years from now, next year, like I want to be at the SAG Awards. Like I want to act. I want to pursue this and live this. And so I know that part of that came in, and I had a bunch of other like mini manifestations come in at that time as well, but I knew because I had pushed the needle multiple times on that test and on that trigger that manifestation had come in, because the universe is like, no, like this is what you're meant to be doing, and if anything, please just take this and accept it. But it took me moving the needle multiple times. And so like all of this goes to say is that you're going to keep peeling that onion layer back, and it's going to be even more difficult than the first time, or it's going to be even easier than the first time. Like I've had both experiences where I'm like, oh my God, I cannot do this. I can't keep looking at this shadow, to, oh my God, I can't believe I was ever avoiding this in the first place. And it keeps coming up and you keep getting triggered, but like the manifestations keep coming through and the gifts keep coming through. Manifestations, that word I feel like has become so synonymous with stuff. It's not just like, oh, you want a new pair of shoes. It's like the universe does want to align you with your path, and this is a gift.
Yes.
And the universe is giving you gifts. It is giving you opportunities to live your fullest truth, the fullest expanse of your life. And it's not this trite, trivial thing that I feel like something blowing up on the internet can turn it into. It's a life's work. I don't just want to like keep accumulating. I want to build something, and I want to build my life and my legacy and my personhood. And that's also the biggest thing that TBM and this work has given me, is I feel like I am a full person, because for a very long time I was not, and I was living out of my trauma, and I was reacting from a negative place, and I was afraid to be seen and afraid to be who I am. And that's what my rock bottom this year really, 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 really finally got through to me, is that like, girl, like if you don't stop trying to be somebody else, if you do not just like step up and be yourself, the universe is going to keep kicking your ass. So like, you might as well be yourself, So the greatest gift is being able to be my full version of self.
That example really nails it, where it's like you have this block, this belief about yourself, this thing that you can't do something, that you deserve less than, that you don't, it's not possible for you. And that's why it's those 3 steps. That's why it's unblocking, expanding, align, action. Because sometimes people get stuck in one of the 3 and then they're not able to actually transform it. Whereas you were working on the unblocking work, but it wasn't fully solidified yet. There was a part of your subconscious that was like, oh, who am I to walk away here? Who am I to say I don't deserve this? But you leaned on your aligned action in that moment. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not fully unblocked, but maybe I need more aligned action and self-expansion. So by you taking that action and saying like, I might not fully believe it yet, but I'm going to jump off this goddamn cliff and kick these people or this situation out of my life and like tell the universe I'm not messing around. Sure, I will still have tests that will be like asking me to look at that block to make sure I've nailed it more and more and more. But as you take that aligned action, you self-expand that it is possible and safe to do. And then that helps you unblock more. You keep going around that trifecta again and again and again. And then the next time you're tested, maybe it's harder because you wanted to avoid all the feelings that came with it. But now you have an example of yourself that, wow, I did do it before. And then the beautiful nature of the universe is like, as you take those steps, they start dropping those little beautiful magical moments to you, especially through pings, which is why I'm so glad that you clocked you need to go to this thing as that ping. They'll come through there, and then that's helping to like super expand you. And I love that this ping not only helped you manifest this money portal that you were looking to open at the time, but all of that is even more so helping guide you on like this bigger mission, this bigger purpose of this greater calling for your soul. And so as you can go and get this expansion at that moment of time, it's almost like The universe rewards you with moments where you're like, what? How is that possible?
Literally.
That sensation of like, what the actual F, how did that just happen, is almost like that expansion, that energy of, wow, if that crazy thing, oddball kismet thing is possible, like, why can't I go off and do my own thing? How can I use this energy and know that I can transform, I can change, I can become whatever I want to become, and how impactful that's going to be on the world around you. So I love that example so much. I think it's so cool.
Thank you. I didn't even know I was going to bring that example up, like the universe, it speaks through us, we're channeling, and it's a great example. It is.
Yes.
So much has happened this year, but yeah, I feel like it really did start with working the SAG Awards and being like, oh, no, I claim this as my life. And I feel like that's what this work helps people do, is claim the life that they want. Everyone should just go for it. Like, what's the harm? And that's something that I've had to tell myself a lot. Worst case scenario. That DI has been so helpful lately. Like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, girl, you're going to be fine. There have been so many situations in my life that I never thought that I was going to survive, or that things were never even going to get better. So also like constantly looking at the things that I never thought that I was going to survive and make through, and realizing that like, oh my God, I would not change a single thing, because look what I have now, and look what that gave me, and look what I learned. Look who I've become. And sometimes when I'm in the rock bottom, do I hate the universe a little bit? Yeah, I do. We're beefing. We're enemies. And I'm mad at the universe a lot. And that happened this year. Like, I talk about like, oh, I had that really big test in rock bottom, but I knew if I kept going, I would learn and I would heal and I would believe. And that's true. But also the whole time I was like, I can't believe you're doing this to me again. After all of the work that I've done, like, really? Like, you're going to do this to me? And I was bitter. I have to be so honest. Like, I was angry. I was so angry. But I also like let myself be angry, because that is the number one emotion I've had such a hard time experiencing. Growing up, anger, there was never a good reason to be angry. I was not allowed to be angry. I did not have this space to be angry. I saw that, again, mirrored in relationships where if I was angry, I was the crazy one. I was the mean one. My anger was constantly unjustified. And I was just being like manipulated and gaslit. Anger, I feel like, because there can be violence attached to anger, like, is such a misunderstood emotion. Violence is not okay, but anger is righteous. Anger is why we have seen the world change the way it has in these years. Like, it's the reason why movements have been successful, why we have moved the needle at all politically and in this society, is because someone had the bravery to be angry publicly, but also a lot of the times the compassion and understanding to like not let their anger consume them and move them to this like really negative and dark place, but instead make something positive out of it and use their anger to bring light to the world. Again, like, my whole life is about duality and two things being true. And you can experience your anger and it doesn't make you this like evil, nasty, bad person. It actually means you're honoring and respecting your boundaries and recognizing, hey, that's not okay, and you deserve better. Like, something should be different. And so I was angry at the universe, and you know what? She's done nothing but give and give and love and like hold me in my anger. And that is magic to me, is to see even beautiful things sprout from all of this negativity and bullshit. But you know what? We made it through, even though I was bitter. Like, we're living now, we're chilling.
I love that you say that too, because I think you're so not alone. When those hard moments hit, that test is hitting you again, or you're in that magic dark and that manifestation is just not coming through, or you're like having to do the same practices you've been doing forever, and you're just like, what the heck is going on? It's so important. That's why that validation DI is so key, because if you are someone who didn't get to sit with your full spectrum of emotional states, it's almost like we think if we validate the negative emotions, we're going to have more of them. Actually, no, when we validate them, we can transform them. So if you are feeling angry, if you are feeling resentful, if you are feeling stuck in a victim mindset, go in there and be like, yeah, that makes perfect freaking sense that you feel that, and watch how fast that transforms when you actually give it the space to like move through that energy. It's when we try to push it down that then it comes out sideways and then it impacts our actions. If you were like, oh, screw you, universe, I can't believe you're doing this to me again, and you didn't sit with that emotion and validate that emotion of being like real and justifiable and understandable, you might then have been like, no, I'm not going to pass the test this time. No, I'm just going to do this instead. You might self-sabotage or push people away or not listen to that ping. If you can sit with that emotion, if you can validate and be like, yes, it makes sense. Now what are we going to do? Now that we've sat with that, now what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? And it just gives you the more empowerment to figure out, okay, how do I move forward from like a clear mental state from here?
And I think that was the thing. I had to sit with it and look at it, because then I had to accept that a lot of it was my fault, actually. And that really speaks to like my Catholic trauma and my upbringing and just parentifying the universe. Growing up Catholic and being very spiritual, like I was devout. Like I was a lector, I was an altar server, I went to youth group. My family to this day is very, very religious, but also like this is so Irish, very superstitious, has so many ghost stories, has had so many paranormal experiences. So it's like my family is very religious, but they're also very spiritual. I've always grown up believing in something and also knowing that it exists, knowing that there is this veil, knowing that there are things outside of this world we can't explain, or like, just the paranormal. Paranormal is real. Ghosts are real, y'all. I'm just going to say that right now. Having this trauma and this fear, needing to be perfect, needing to be enough, all of these wounds, blah, blah, blah. When I really pivoted into spirituality and truly like left the Catholic faith, the universe just became this stand-in for my experience in a relationship with the Catholic God. And a lot of people have very positive, experience. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Catholic community, but I know for me personally, it was like, this God is going to punish me. This God is angry with me. I will never do enough to atone for who I just innately am as a person. Like, I am a bad person. And so when I started doing the TBM work, really, TBM just means that like I'm going to learn how to be a really good person, and it's going to heal me and make me a good person. And then if I'm a really, really good person, then I'm going to receive these manifestations. I'm going to like be nicer to people that I like, strangers on the street, and like I'm going to be really compassionate, and I'm going to make sure that I clean up after myself in the living room because no one wants a roommate with her shit all over the place. I'm going to be a really, really, really good person, and I'm going to be perfect, and I'm going to pull it together, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And so I would do things, and I would pass these tests, and I would take these steps, and I'd look at the universe like, you see me right now? I'm doing it. Like, I'm doing exactly what you want. Like, I'm being perfect, and I'm being good. And look at this, and look at that. And then I would get rock bottomed, or I would get triggered, and I get tested, and I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing this to me? Like, I thought I was giving you what you wanted. And that was earlier into my experience with TBM. And then like this year, I was taking these leaps, and I was like, I know if I leap, the universe is going to reward me. And I know like I'm going to get this manifestation, and I'm going to reach this new place in my life. And I quit my job, and I had to cut off my family for a while. And it was all of this shit storm of intense emotion and pain. I was in so much pain. And it honestly, like, it triggered my abandonment wound. Like, I felt so alone, and I was like, oh my God, why are you doing this to me? Like, why are you hurting me? And I had to zoom out and be like, the universe didn't do anything to me. These are actions and choices that I had to take accountability. My life, like, yes, while the universe can like align up really beautiful things, while the universe works its magic, our daily lives and experiences are a product of us. In the society we live in, like, I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't structures in place holding people back hugely. And I see what's going on in the world. I see struggles for like freedom and resistance, and it's hard. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, and we must be accountable for all of these things that are outside of our control. But in my personal life and in my relationships and in my career, these things are in my control. And I had to take my power back, because that was the thing about being raised Catholic and about being raised in my family, was being taught to be afraid of my own power and being taught that I didn't have it. And it's like, no, actually, I just found that power within me. It's always been here, and I've been taught to deny it and be afraid of it. This is the path that I am on, and I have to own it. If I'm going to own my power, I also have to own my shit. If I'm going to own my shit, I also have to own my power. And I had to make a lot of peace with the universe that is not God, and the God that is not the universe. And again, something that TBM and this work has consistently taught me is that everything is within my power. Everything is within our power as a community. I need to show up better for myself so I can show up better for everybody else. And I need to pick the people that I am spending my most time with so that I can show up best as myself. It's this constant balancing of scales and finding that balance of accountability and trust, and also not being afraid to call shit out when it's not your fault.
One thing that you said in there too, I think is really helpful. A friend of mine did a coaching session with Peter Crone. And one of the things that he said is, well, yeah, that's the repercussions of the 1.0 version of you's decisions. And I always come back to that when I'm stuck in a hard place. Once you start doing this work and you become conscious of like, okay, great, I know these are the choices I need to make. And I know that this feels not in alignment for me, or I need to set a boundary or whatever. But sometimes your prior actions and choices have gotten you to a place that now it compromises your authenticity to say that now, or it compromises your authenticity or integrity to change it. And so one thing I like to remind myself is like, okay, Jess 1.0 made that decision and choice. And now that we know differently, I will not be making that choice again. So let me deal with the consequences of that prior action that I took. And now knowing differently, I'm going to choose differently and act differently. As you learn more about yourself and what you actually really, really need, maybe you're not going to say yes to that hangout with those friends anymore. Maybe you're not going to take that job anymore. Maybe you'll see the red flag for that job much sooner and you'll be able to exit sooner. But can you give the earlier version of you who made that decision a little bit of compassion, because they didn't have all the intel that you have now? That really sets you up of like, okay, here is the result of my last version of self's decisions, but let's make some new ones going forward.
Here's to us 2.0, I guess.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our Deep Imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our Trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the Magnetic Self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, MAGNETIC. Now back to the episode.
I want to touch in really quickly on your relationship manifestation, because I think it's such a kismet story. And I'm also noticing a theme of you birthing incredible manifestations after rock bottoms.
Yes.
So how did your relationship manifestation come to be?
When I was manifesting a relationship, I wanted this perfect person and this perfect partnership. And I was fed the lie, especially like being Catholic, being raised in my family was like, you have your person. This is it. You have the one person. They are the one. And like, also I'm Pisces Venus. I'm a hopeless romantic. Like I love Disney movies. I'm sorry. Like I love love. It's ridiculous. And so I'm sure you can imagine I've had a lot of toxic relationships because of that mindset and because of like, it needs to be perfect. And now being in what is my perfect relationship, I just want to expand the people for a moment, just put it out there and say like, I love him so much. Sometimes he drives me crazy. The relationship is not perfect. Like it's not at all what I thought it would be. We have our moments, but like what makes it so special is that we can communicate so openly and so easily. And I know that he's working as hard for me as I am for him. And that also makes it not hard. I didn't know any of that when I first started dating.
Bursting the Disney bubble, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's real.
It's hard. Yeah, I had to burst that bubble because I thought that like, my most toxic relationship, like we were bad to each other. Like there's that meme or that tweet that's like, why is it that the person you dated when you were 19 ruined your life? And it's like, yeah, like I think we messed each other up a little bit, but I also trust in the universe and its design. And like, I do believe that like we had agreements when we incarnated on this earth. No one has put me on my path more than that ex. And I hope that, you know, he could say the same about me. It's okay if he doesn't, but like, I'm grateful for that really difficult experience. But that being said, I was in a very, very toxic relationship and I was like, oh, this is my person. No, girl, like, no, it's not. And actually, as a result of leaving that relationship or in the process of leaving that relationship is how I started doing TBM. So, you know, everything does happen for a reason. And here we are. But fast forwarding for 4 years since that big breakup, I wanted a partner. Like, I really thought that I was going to get a relationship and it was going to save me and it was going to fix everything in my life. And I never would have admitted that at the time. I didn't know that I thought that at the time. But after getting into this relationship and experiencing it and loving and being loved the way I deserve, and also the rest of my life still being the rest of my life and what it was, I was like, oh, I really thought this was going to save me. I thought that this was going to show me that I was enough. It was going to fill this hole. It didn't do that. But so for 4 years, I like was desperate because I wanted this hole filled. Like I wanted also this status symbol. I wanted to feel complete. So finally last year, 2023, so I had been traveling at the beginning of the year and we had matched on Hinge and we had set a date to meet. And I think it was like Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, that's really fun. Like I would love a first date on Valentine's Day, but I was really busy and he got sick. So we just canceled the date. And we never talked again, but we followed each other on Instagram. And I get to his Instagram page as I'm going through this massive unfollowing spree. This man has 3 posts. Like he is not a poster, which was something that was on my list. Was I want a person who doesn't have a super online presence. Like I want someone really like connected and like in the world. He had like 3 posts on Instagram. I had no reason to still be following him. I had unfollowed people I knew in middle school and I was like, I should just unfollow him, whatever. But I didn't. And I was like, I'm just going to keep following him. I moved on. And a few days later, he liked me on Hinge again. So that was our second time he liked me on Hinge. And I responded, you again. And so we started talking and he immediately was like, do you want to go on a date? And I was like, yes. And we were talking and we realized like our grandpas on paper sounded similar. Both named William, went by Bill, born in the Bronx, moved to Massachusetts, born in the month of October, joined the Navy. We both called them Pop. And I was like, this is weird. Like, this is a lot. But I was like, whatever. Like, the universe is just testing me. It's showing me this like really insane synchronicity, and me and my old trauma and my own patterns would be like, oh my God, this is my person. And I was like, no. So we made a plan for our second date. We got Dunkin' Donuts because East Coast forever. Yes. And we went to laser tag. And at laser tag, I point to his tattoo and it says Woodland on his left forearm. And I was like, oh, like, tell me about that. Like, what's that? And he was like, oh, well, that's the street I grew up on. And my mouth dropped because I was like, I have these branches on my left arm and they're ash tree branches, my left forearm. And it's for the street I grew up on, Ash Road. And I was like, you have a tattoo for the street you grew up on your left forearm? And he went, yeah. And I went, so do I. But I still said, this is a test from the universe. They're showing me all these synchronicities and they want me to believe that this is happening and it's not, and I will not be fooled. And I was resisting it. I went from being the dreamer to being the discerner because I was like, there's no way, like, this is not my manifestation. This is not my manifestation. I tried to end it with him. We had gone on another date and I was like, you know what? I think we should just be casual. And then we went on another date and we still hadn't slept together. I think it was like our 4th date. He just slept over. And I was like, oh, I really like you. And I went back and I looked at my list. Quiet but confident, has Scorpio and Leo placements, offline, creative, a writer. We had the same values and we had the same upbringing. I was like, oh my God, okay, like this is happening. And so then we were apart for a month and that was huge trauma and like huge triggering for me because I'd had long distance relationships end horribly, really blew up in my face, were really toxic, really painful. And he had as well. And so we were both terrified. The day that I got back was the day he was leaving. We ended up meeting in LAX and we like ran to each other. We kissed each other. I gave him this bolo tie that I made him and he went on his way. And when he came back within a week, you know, like he asked me to be his girlfriend and yeah, and he's the love of my life.
How long have you guys been together?
We've been together for 1.5 years, and this is funny and worth mentioning because this was the huge manifestation. Because I kept looking at the universe this year after this huge rock bottom, and I was like, look, I'm seeing a lot of little great stuff, but like I know there's something big. Like, what's the big thing? Like, what's happening? So on our 1-year anniversary, we were flown to London to be in a campaign for Hinge.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, but it was also manifestation because they paid us so much money. We got to make our first short film together because he's also a writer, director. I'm a writer, director, actor. We produced it. We made our first short film. We were in this campaign for the dating app that we met on. And it's like, it's magical. And I love him so much. And he's so great.
So good. I feel like so many people are going to have more questions about all of your journey and stuff. So we have to like share on socials and everything because it's just such a good love manifestation. And I also love like, you know, as you're going through the peaks and valley of life, how much the synchronicities, those special moments, those little things just like pop in, like kind of reminding you, guiding you. No, there's magic all around you. You just need to harness it. It's here. Like keep showing up, keep showing up. Is there any last thing that you would want to hear when you were in the thick of your rock bottoms?
It gets better. Synchronicities are everything. You're worth it. You're not a bad person. Jessica, when you were talking about that realization that you had when you did the challenge this summer, it cracked me open because it was the number one thing that I had been avoiding throughout my whole life, through all this work that I've done. Because I was so afraid that if I looked at being a bad person, I felt like I didn't deserve to move on from that narrative. I couldn't even acknowledge that it was a narrative that I had, but I talk about that all the time to people. But because I believed it so innately about myself, I believed that that wasn't something that I could fix or work on. Like, this is like almost like original sin. Like, I am a bad person. And if I work on this and if I acknowledge it, or if I forgive myself, it means that like I forgive all of these things that I've done, and that like I just didn't believe that I was worthy of my own forgiveness. And I could not accept that I am a good person, or just a person, like good, bad, whatever. Like, we all have this whole capacity of self within ourselves. I couldn't offer myself that forgiveness or that grace. And that's what I would say to me in that rock bottom, to anybody. Like, you do deserve it. You really do. Like, your own forgiveness, your own compassion. You are not a bad person. You get to move on from you point 1.0, you know, like you get to have everything that you want, and it's okay. You don't have to be ashamed of that, or ashamed of your desires, or ashamed of who you are. You are good and you're worthy, and it is going to be okay. And it's hard to look at that version of yourself, but like, you deserve to, and you get to, and it's a lot lighter on the other side when you can release that and tell yourself that like, it's going to be okay.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Maura. This has been so expansive, so authentic. That's one thing that I kept thinking the whole time we were recording. I was like, she's so authentic. Like, she's so herself, her own imprint. Like, I love it. So good.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to go cry. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And if you're starting to get a feel for this to be magnetic manifestation process, but aren't completely sold yet, let me point you to some of our free offerings. You can check out the expanded podcast episode called How to Manifest Anything You Desire, where Lacey, the founder, and I break down exactly what this process is all about. You can check out The Motivation, which is our testimonial library with thousands of testimonials of people who have manifested wild things using this process. Or you can check out our free mini workshop to find out why you're not manifesting and listen to one of our proprietary deep imagining audios, where it's going to help you drop into your theta state and overwrite low self-worth limiting beliefs. Enjoy. We'll see you next week.